Hello and welcome back to Math and Tea, the show where we talk math and drink. Okay, it's coffee today. Look, I just need the caffeine fix. Anyways, I'm your host, Professor Joseph Van High. In this episode, I want to review another book for you, this time by Nate Silver of 538.com fame. The book is The Signal and the Noise, Why So Many Predictions Fail, but Some Don't. It's rather interesting to follow up Cathy O'Neil's Weapons of Math Destruction, which I talked about in the previous episode, with this book, because they talk about a lot of the same kind of things, but from a different perspective. Cathy O'Neil is really interested in the social impact of algorithms. What impact does a given algorithm have on us? Whereas Silver, on the other hand, is more interested in the nuts and bolts behind algorithms and models. Let's call it Predictionology 101. Silver wants to tell us about models, what they can do well, what they can't do well, how and why they work, and most importantly, help us match our expectations to reality. I won't make any bones about this. I've been a big fan of Nate Silver and the rest of the 538 crew for some time. Now, Nate Silver got his start as a political prediction whiz kid, but really, the reason why I like him and the rest of the 538 crew is because it's one of the few places in the news media where statistics is done right. Few things really get under my skin, like watching a political pundit or some news anchor get up on screen and start talking about some poll or some scientific study, and of course get all of the math wrong. And this happens all the time. And then along comes 538, like an oasis in the desert, giving nuance, correcting mistakes, and debunking hype. Heck yes. As much as I love 538, though, I'm aware that the format isn't always conducive to explanation. Articles tend to be rather short and separate from one another, so it feels like you get the same explanation over and over again, and there's not really an ability to build on knowledge that's already been gained. And I get the feeling that as Silver was sitting down to write this, he was thinking, hey, I've got room now, and he makes good use of it. Unlike on 538.com, where you have all these disjoint and separate topics, here he spends the time to really start building up knowledge. Yes, you're learning more about different things, but you're also learning more and more about how statistics work as time goes on. At the same time, Silver keeps his topics really grounded. He covers a whole wide range of topics, but all of them seem to deal with things that we are used to in some way or another. Maybe it's entertainment like sports or poker, the accuracy of political punditry. Maybe the stock market or economic forces, and much like Cathy O'Neil, he does go into detail on the banking crisis of 2007. However, despite all of this, I think the strongest parts of the book are when he talks, separately, about weather, climate, and earthquake prediction. His discussion of each of those topics provides very useful comparisons and contrasts. We would, for instance, like to know when the next big quake is going to strike, say, here in Ohio. Well, by and large, there's really no way to do that. But on the other hand, if we talk about a very, very long time span, hundreds, maybe thousands of years, then we could probably predict with pretty good confidence how many quakes will occur and roughly how strong they will be. It's not that earthquakes aren't predictable, it's just that what we can predict about them isn't what we hope or even expect to be predicted. In that way, it's again a lot like climate and weather, where we think, oh, hey, we can't talk about what the weather's going to be like next week. How do we expect to talk about what the climate is going to be next year? When again, they're talking about two completely different things. And Silver does more than ground us in familiar topics. He also grounds us in story. Sometimes he's talking about the people who are really successful at predictions, and sometimes he's talking about the people who aren't. Because how better to learn about the future than to tell us about the follies of the past? His style is breezy and engaging, and it serves as a very gentle introduction to the statistics he wants to talk about. And okay, if I really have to make a complaint about the book, it's probably that it's a little bit too gentle of an introduction to the topic. Okay, I know this is kind of a common complaint for me. I'm an academic, so sue me. It sometimes felt like Silver was dodging around the complex issues going on behind the scenes, maybe a bit too much. It felt sometimes like he was never expecting us to hold on to two concepts at the same time. You've got this one thing, you can just deal with that one thing. And sometimes that's good if you want a gentle introduction, and sometimes it's bad if you want a little more than that. I kept expecting a little bit more meat and potatoes to go in this book, and I kept getting hot dogs and undercooked rutabagas. But quibbles aside, I really did enjoy this book, and I highly recommend it. It talks about a lot of things that we could just afford to know better, myself included. For a more personalized recommendation, As I was reading through this book, I kept getting the feeling that I got when I was watching shows like How It's Made or Unwrapped on the Food Network. They take big processes and break them down into a bunch of small, understandable steps and show us what's going on behind the scenes at the same time. If you like those sorts of things and you want something a little more sciencey bent, then this book is probably for you. But that's all for now because I'm out of tea. Anyways, next up we'll be talking about Jordan Ellenberg and the book How Not to Be Wrong.